Welcome, guys, back to the Grateful Living podcast. Today, I'm thankful to have Mohamed Diarra with me. Mohamed is a Howard University graduate who started a financial planning practice with Northwestern Mutual. Mohamed also, unfortunately, lost both his parents before the age of 20 and will speak about his personal experience there. Mohamed, thank you so much for joining us.
All right, appreciate you for having me, man. Happy Wednesday.
Hey, of course, thankful to have you on, Mo. It's going to be powerful, and I appreciate you being so open um, about your life history and your parents, and hopefully you can help someone out there going through a similar experience through their journey. Yeah,
Exactly. That's the goal, man. That's the goal.
yeah. So for those of us that don't know you as well, do you want to take us back to the beginning, kind of set the scene where you grew up, your family situation, and what type of kid you were?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, great place to start. And honestly, I'd say, man, it really starts from like the minute I can remember, just always having to deal with stuff, right? Not knowing that it was like a non-normal thing, right? So what do I mean? Originally, mom and dad, West African, moved there at a pretty young age. I'm a first generation American. When I was born in 95, I was actually born with two eye conditions, pretty rare. So ocular albinism and nystagmus. So I've had terrible eyesight since I can remember. I used to go to therapy all the time as a kid. So it might not be as apparent now, but like there are times where like even when I was younger, like you can see like my eyes might move or like my head might shake slightly. And that's because of the eyesight. But grew up, just always like that. As like, just wear glasses, right? Uh, Grew up in a pretty humble household. Education was something that was always big. Mom and dad did what they could. It never really felt like we didn't have, right? But looking back on it now, it's like, whoa, like I probably wouldn't go back and do that or live like that. But it was me, my mom, my dad, my sister all cooped up in a one bedroom apartment in Dykeman. So real urban area at a pretty young age though. When I was about 8, my dad passed away while I was in elementary school. And that right there was probably like the first hit of like reality for me, right? I had known my dad had already been sick. He had lung cancer. So he had it before. Everything was okay. He got cured, and then it came back years later, a few years later. And so that was something that like I can always remember from like my earliest memories. It's like going to, basketball camp, karate, and then doing a lot of like international travel to like try to figure out cures for cancer for my dad. Like I would travel with my mom and my dad and my sister.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that happened, and I remember like this summer it happened. We were in West Africa, and I remember the conversation I had with my mom. And mind you, again, all this is happening as I'm 8, right? And uh, it was just kind of like, she sat me down, is like she kept it real blunt with me, and like, like I knew she was trying to figure out like how to tell me what happened, but I'd already kind of picked up what had happened already from just like everybody's reaction, right? Like, and so again, I'm like, as it's going on, I'm like, how do I attempt to kind of make this, um, situation that's already tough a little bit easier. And so it's like my mom was kind of like, hey, like your dad is probably not gonna come, like he's not coming back, like he's still with us. Telling, I'm like, yeah, like, I get it. I mean, it's you, my sister, and me now. Like we gotta hold it down, we gotta rock out. And that was in 3rd grade. So I will say that my mom like did the best of her ability to like never make sure that my younger sister and I like wanted for anything. Worked extremely hard. Entrepreneur, had a hair salon, was a substitute teacher on the side, was just doing everything that she could to try to, make sure that she could provide for us. So I did move around a lot too as a kid. So I can tell I probably lived in almost every single borough in New York City. So I was born in the Bronx. I lived in Dykeman, moved to Brooklyn elementary school, moved back to Harlem, I'll get into that, but yeah, so so that happens. Elementary school is okay. I end up relocating my fifth grade year of elementary school to go to another school in Brooklyn. It's like my only year. And this was probably like the first time how much I realized how different I was. Like I knew I was different in elementary, like up until that point, but going from a place where you have your friends from like kindergarten to like third, fourth grade to now this new scenario where nobody knows you, nobody knows where you're from, everybody's known each other. And here comes I moved to Brooklyn to into Bushwick actually to a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. So here comes this young black kid, probably one of like maybe 10 in the whole school. I have terrible eyesight. So I used to get picked on all the time. So I have a disability, black in a Spanish neighborhood. Mom is doing her best to take care of just me and my sister. And I'm like, man, like that's probably like one of the I'd say like when I look back over the years, like the only time I'm like, dang, I probably don't have any friends in like the fifth grade. uh, and so it was kind of crazy, right? Probably one of the hardest years of my life, but it was cool because I'd say I learned how to deal with knowing like at home I got my family, at school like it's me, I gotta figure it out. So I end up getting into it's a public school but charter school kind of thing. I had to apply to. Only 30 kids get in. That's how I've met some of my best friends to this day, called Accolade Aussie Leadership Secondary School. And I remember everybody in my fifth grade class applied to get into the school. Probably like over 150, 200 kids. I was the only person from my school, from my elementary school, to get in to the middle school. And it was pretty like, it was like, whoa, like, okay. And I wasn't even trying to get in, but thank God I did. And it's kind of crazy. I was like, well, this kind of makes it easy. I'm not really leaving any friends behind because I didn't have any stuff. I didn't have to worry about the whole, like,
Yeah.
like I got in, they didn't get in kind of thing, like now it's just like, for sure nobody remembers me. I don't remember too many of them, but
Yeah.
ended up getting in. And yeah, so I'd say from like 6th to 12th grade, man, like things were smooth sailing, right? Like again, at this point, my mom to a bank. She had gotten remarried when I was in high school. I had a younger brother who I loved to death. And now it's like, I'm coming up on graduation. I already know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to school. I'm gonna go away. I'm getting out of New York. I was fortunate enough in high school to be a bunch of organizations and programs that showed me stability, leadership, and mentorship. So one of the programs is Minds Matter. That's how I've known some of my really good friends and gotten to experience some really good things at a young age. And so, yeah, I ended up going to college, thinking like things are good. Like, like this is what life's about, right? Like I could always remember just from being a kid growing up, like I can't wait to go to college so I can go away, right?
Yeah.
Not to like be away, but to experience it and be grown. And so, yep, end up moving to Washington, D.C. I go to Howard University. And that probably was, again, another scenario or situation where I've kind of just like leaped out on my own. I applied to like 13 schools. I applied to so many schools actually in high school that my common application, I had to do two of them just because I had to put one school on another application because that was the last school that I wanted to go to. And crazy enough, that school was Howard.
Mm.
Right. And
Wow.
so end up I get in. I didn't know anything about Howard. I didn't know, I just knew it was a black school, right? Like parents are West African, not, they went to CUNYs, so they got the education, but it was like, okay, it's a good school, but nothing, not the cultural relevance or the historical relevance in any context. And I got advice from a teacher I won't name because the advice is kind of controversial, but he's like, hey
Yeah.
man, like you should go. I'm comparing schools, like you should go to Howard and go be with people that, look like you come from the same background and surrounded. It'd be a pretty new, cool experience. And I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. And my first day on campus was like my first day on campus was the first day of class. So I never visited for like Students Day. I never looked up pictures online. I didn't do any of that. I just showed
Yeah.
up like here. Um, so yeah, mom drops me off. Go through that freshman year. In my freshman year of undergrad, my mom passes away. Um, Literally as I'm home that first semester. She went away on a vacation to West Africa. She went to Mali. That's where we're from, Mali and Ivory Coast. And she's transitioning, starting to build out there. And she was there for a couple of weeks, months. And I remember just getting the call from my uncle to let me know. And similar to like with my dad, I knew or I felt already that something was wrong. And it was, yeah, I got the news and it's just like, whoa, like this is the reality. And this is like maybe a few days after Mother's Day, right?
Mm.
And so yeah, I'm at that point I was just really thrown for a loop. It's probably one of, I mean, between that, my dad being in undergrad, knowing that I could have my younger sister's 3 years younger than me, my little brother who can barely like read, right? Um, I'm what 19 at the time, maybe 20, right? And life just literally flipped upside down. Uh, and I thank God for all of the decisions and all of the things that I had done that had put me in uncomfortable situations leading up into that point, because that's when I realized that I had some amazing support systems around me um, to really help me get through that tough time. Uh, but that's freshman year. Come back to school sophomore year, like, still focused, locked in. And I've always been known, or people know me as like, something might be wrong, but like, you're not gonna see it all the time, right? Or you're not gonna know. I try to do my best to bounce back. Cause I mean, from the moment I can remember as a young kid, I've always been different. I've always had to put on like I'm fine, even when I wasn't fine, because it's like you got to learn how to maneuver as a kid just growing up in New York City. Like that thing right there. Like you should just get like a badge or a degree just for going to New York City public schools.
Yeah.
Uh, but so yes, I end up I get through undergrad, uh, graduate with a degree in history actually, and a minor in strategic legal management and communication. And so the goal is actually go to law school. When I got to Howard, I get to Howard, decide that, whoa, law school is not for me. And so now I'm trying to figure out, okay, like as I'm coming up on graduation, what am I good at? What can I do? And how do I get a job coming out? Because that's probably the most relevant thing. Um, One of my best friends and my business partner today, his name is Anthony Williams. I've known him. Him and my other best friend, Justice, we've known each other since like our first day at Howard. I remember walking into their room. They lived across from me. I was like, hey, you guys look like you're from New York. I'm from New York. We're friends. And
Mhm.
literally since then, we've been best friends. And I was in 2013. So coming up on a decade with that. But that summer, though, my mom, when she passed away, Anthony had actually started his internship with Northwestern Mutual as a financial planning intern. And he had a conversation with me that summer, uh, just helping me figure out and get things in order for this new reality that I was in. And over the course of the years, you'd always tell me, hey, like, Mo, you can, like, the value of what I do and how I do it. And I think you'd be amazing at it, just as good as I am. Have you thought about it? And I would tell you, like, I would shut it down. Like, no, that's not me, man. That's you. Like, I'm like, I gotta find my own lane. I can't do what you do. I gotta figure something out. And literally coming up on graduation, I remember he's driving me to an interview, and on the way back from the drive, he's like, dude, like, why don't you just give it a shot? I'm like, you know what? Let me check it out. Let me do it. And that summer I interned with the company and was a top 10 intern that summer, top 15 over the course of that year. And then the next year after that, went out and launched financial planning practice, started my own business right out of undergrad, right? Again, I mean, now I think we're in 2022. It's more of a being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, something that you see it's more common, right? Like people are more willing to take that leap of faith. But I can't say things were the same in 2018, right? And so in
Yeah, yeah.
2018, right, it's different. I'm like, man, I'm a business owner. I didn't even really get it at the time, right? Um, and yes, I started my career in DC. Started my practice there. Was there for roughly about 4 years, and I recently moved back to New York in January. Anthony and I opened an office in Harlem. Well, he opened the office in Harlem. He gave me a ring, said, "Hey, man, I couldn't picture myself doing this with anybody. Um, Come down and help me build this out." And I mean, I came down to New York for a few weeks. Um, also realized I wanted to be closer to my family. It it just felt like it was time. And I came back, and it's been amazing since. So I mean, yeah, I know a long-winded, um, but definitely just like a lot of different moving pieces. And I'd say that the some of the things that have really gotten me through are just the support systems that I've had, whether I've leaned on them or not. Um, but just being able to have people that care about me so much that like they wouldn't leave me alone, or they were always there for me, and it allowed me to grow. Because I tell you this, like the person I was when I got to Howard in 2013 and the person that I am today, completely different. Um, and the person that, yeah, when my mom had passed away, that my freshman year is like the people that are there for me. I've just met some of these people like 9 months ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
I've only been here for 2 semesters, 9 months is a stretch, right? Like two fall semester, a fall semester and a spring semester. Um, and so it's I'm fortunate enough to say that like I've been put through things at a very young age, or I've gone through things that as I'm getting older, I've seen that it's not a Mo thing, it's not a Muhammad, it's not a me thing, right? Like this stuff happens to everybody. Life happens to everybody. Whether you know it or not. Um, and so it's knowing that I've gone through these things, knowing that I'm going to continue to go through things. Um, how can I, from what I've gone through, put myself in a situation to when things come my way, I can handle them and help other people handle them. And I'd say now I'm at a point where honestly, I just want to be able to give back to as many people as possible, whether it be through my time, whether it be through community service, whether it be through work, right? Like I work in financial planning services, but what drives me is the ability to talk to people every day and make an impact on their lives, so that in the event something does go wrong, right? Um, how can I help you be in a position, you know, not to say I was in a terrible position, right? But in a better situated scenario, so that you don't have to go through a lot of the headaches and things that I've seen, that I've experienced, that break people up, like inside themselves or their families or their friendships. And then also too, how do I help people dream, right? To go out and accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. Because I'd say, man, I'm fortunate enough to, I'd say, sometimes think way too big and just end up or land in scenarios where I'm like, man, I didn't think I'd end up here. Um, but being able to tap into both sides, right? Like you can go out, you can do it, like whatever it is, and then also on the same token saying like, you are going to go through things, you are going to go through life. How do we make sure that you know you're good, right, and you're okay, so that you
Yeah.
can continue to do the things that you enjoy. And so yeah, I mean, I'd say that's kind of where I'm at now, just
Yeah.
back in New York, um, and just trying to just get better every single day and grow as a person. So yeah, I
Yeah.
know again, hopefully that was helpful on the inside. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that was very helpful. Thank you for the entire context. Um, I guess as you look back to when you were a kid, um, you know, when your dad was battling, lung cancer, um, Do you remember, like, while he was alive, like what your feelings were like, and were you were you able to even process, like, you know, what was going on in terms of him being in and out of the hospital, or like, what, how do you remember how that was processing mentally?
Yeah, man. So I can say I do. And I remember being in, and now that you've asked me and I think about the answer and I think about who I am now and I think about who I was then, it's a trait that I was unrealistically optimistic because I didn't know the severity of what could be. You know, um, I was excited. Like not in the sense of the situation, but I wanted to be there, right? Like I wanted to go to the appointments. I wanted to stay up with my dad. I wanted to, travel with the family if we were gonna go and try to go to like different places to see what like different cures or medicines might work. Or like I was like for me, it was just like, okay, like my dad is sick, or I don't even know if I could put it into the context of like he's sick in my head, but like I knew that he just wasn't okay. Right. And so it's just like, yeah, like let's like whatever we got to do, like let's do it. And I just remember like I can't say I remember what it was like full fledged because I mean I was 8, right? The years before leading up to that, but I just and even like I look at pictures now, but I remember just spending time with my dad, like when he was a teacher. I remember going to the high school he used to work at, and sitting in on some of his classes or going on trips, school trips that they allowed me to, like high schoolers. I remember us like eating lunch together, going to the park, like doing like small things like that. I remember doing those things. And I remember, yeah, I guess just being just overly optimistic. And I'd say when he had cancer the first time and he beat it, I was like, oh yeah, like cool. And I'm not gonna lie, I remember this very vividly. I remember when my mom had the conversation with me the second time, like my daddy got sick again. In my mind, I was like, well, let's just go do what we did the first time and we're good to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we go to the same doctors, we go to the same places, we do the same thing all over again. Um, and we're straight. You know what I mean? So let's just run it back. Like let's get them good. So I'd say that's what I remember. I remember just like I can't say I really remember being sad, you know. Um, I just remember just being optimistic, like things are gonna be like in my mind, the just yeah, like the worst possible situation or the worst possible scenario couldn't happen or wasn't an option. And so I feel like when I was just around like, family, like, relative, like whoever it was, they're probably looking at like this kid is like he's like they got this, and it's like it's just I just didn't know, which I think is looking back at it now, like I'd say probably it was probably helpful for like the people around me just to have like a you know young kid running around just all optimistic, like things are gonna work out, they're gonna be okay, um, and yeah, just trying to like just do what I can to help. And like I said, and I remember like when the night that he passed, or like the days leading up to it, I remember the conversation I had with my mom. I remember people coming by and like, talking to me and like, are you good? Are you okay? And I was, I just kind of knew, like I said, I knew what happened, and it was like, it was tough. But I was like, all right, like, how do I best be there for my mom? How do I best be there for my sister? Um, and yes, but I'd say I think about it every single day. Like I've thought about it every single day. It's come across my mind. Um, so that yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say that's probably like the when I think about like that time period of like what was going on like in my mind, it was just kind of like, all right, my dad's sick, we got to help him out, we got to figure it out. And like, yeah, I don't remember like this. I don't remember too much outside of that.
obviously after his passing, um, you know, you talked about your mom being kind of straightforward and things like that. I'm curious as you look back on that process and um maybe there's a mom out there or a dad out there with a child that's trying to figure out having this conversation um with their kid. You talked about your mom being pretty honest. Is that the way you kind of would recommend going, or how,
Yeah. So I would say honestly, um, and it's a good question to ask because my mom actually took a different route with my sister, where I was 8, my sister was 5, and my mom had told my sister that my dad had went away for vacation, and that so now it's I'd say that right, like I think there's risk to both, right? And I think that you have to know and be confident in who you are and what you're parenting, like what your system or mode of parenting is, right? Um, and just and knowing your child, right? Like what's the best way for them to receive information. I think my mom knew that like at a very young age I was always very different, so I always had to deal with a lot, so I had tough skin, right? Like people would make, like, I think by the time I got to like second, third grade, people weren't picking on me because I was like, you don't want what's about to come your way if you try to come for me. And so I think she knew that, whereas my sister is a little different. And so it's like it's tough because you tell the hardcore truth and you don't know how that the child is going to take that, but at the same time, like, you don't tell the truth and you do, like what my mama did and told my sister my dad went on vacation or something like that. Now you're holding, like, that's a big thing to keep a secret. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I remember, like, especially too as like a kid, like being around like some of my cousins, and again, kids being kids, right? Or like family friends or whatever it is. And it sounds crazy to say, but like people trying to like tell my sister, like, yo, like your dad's not on vacation, da da da. I'm like, yo, like, are you crazy? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you like this is like, why would you go out of your way to do something like that? And so I think that risk right there is what makes not telling the truth, in my opinion, like super difficult to do, right? Like, would you rather the news or the information come from you and you got to figure out how to tell or give that information, or would you rather be like, your son or your daughter is at a family friend's house or like at a cousin's house or like at the school playground or something like that, and somebody else comes and breaks this news to them, and I think like that right there, like that's tough, right? Like, I don't how do you come back from that? And uh I mean, my mom eventually, we sat down and had the conversation with my sister, but well, she did. Um, but yeah, I think it's tough either way. I can't say that I would blame someone in a situation for whatever decision they do choose. Um, However, I do think it's an opportunity. Like, if you can come and you can be honest and you can have that conversation, uh, I think it's a moment of like vulnerability, right? And honesty and transparency, and uh, like you just never know how, like, like how your child is going to react. Because I think sometimes too, like, parents look at kids like, like their kids, they're not going to get it, like, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, I think my mom telling me or having that conversation with me helped me help her, right?
yeah,
Because now I knew, like, I kind of looked at it as like, I got to be the man of the house in whatever like crazy world that means for an 8-year-old, right? But it's like, I'm going to be the toughest I can be as an 8-year-old because, like, this is our situation, you know? Um, and so, yeah, I think, and then I think too, when it comes to like healing, right? Like, also, like, you can heal or start that process from an earlier age, like, imagine I didn't know my dad had passed away until like I was 12. Like, That's 4 years of me thinking my dad's on vacation, like, or like five, like, or what, not even like whatever it is that you tell him, like however much time that goes by, like, because now it's like, oh, I'm dealing with this at 12. Like, I thought like the last 4 years of my life have been a lie. That's how I would look at it,
Yep.
or like however that time period is. So actually, I'll double back. I guess I can't blame someone who's in a situation for either route, right? But I do think that like being as honest and transparent as you can, like, and I think if you trust like what you've done and what you're doing, raising your child, like it works out,
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
I'm curious, like, just for you personally, um, did you start to act out? Were you mad? Or like as you look back on that period in life, like how did you cope or how did you deal?
Yeah, so I would say I wasn't I can't say I acted out. I was still like still went to like I mean I was elementary, but I still did the same old things. I would say if anything, I just started to notice things a little bit more. I think I became a lot more aware of my surroundings and what was going on in life. Um, and I would say I think I also had more of the mindset of too of like just like why me? Like here I am, like already like I have terrible eyesight. Like I go to therapy at least once a week. As a kid, I was also sick a lot too. So like asthma, I had asthma. I used to go to the hospital all the time. Get like, and so it's like all these things, and it just felt like another thing, like this too, right? Uh, but no, I'd say just yeah, I think it just motivated me to just keep doing what I was doing, and help out my like I said, be there for my mom. Because like I said, I knew like I as I think about it as an adult, like I don't even think about how like as a kid, like how much of a tough time that was for her, like and how she was going through what she was going through. So for me, it was just kind of like, how do I make the best of what's going on right now? Right. Um, and if I can do that, then like hopefully down the line, the rest will work itself out. So that was more so my mindset. How can I, yeah, how can I make the best of it and, get to just trying to do like, or go back to doing like what a day to day was like or felt like at the time.
Unfortunately, there's probably a kid out there in a similar situation to you today. Um, they may end up listening to this. Is there anything you would have told yourself at 8, about the grieving process, about life, or about just um, moving forward that you wish you knew someone told you, or wish you had the wisdom of, that time?
Yeah, I would say I would a few things. I would encourage them to open up. Um, and even though I think like, I'd say even as a kid, right, or like even as an adult too, I think sometimes you don't necessarily feel like you're being heard or people are listening to what you're saying. Um, but I've learned that like sometimes you just gotta like it's just a matter of like getting it off your chest, you know. Um, and I would tell myself too to have confidence in what I was doing because I do think looking back on it, I think I did the best I could. And I think in the moment it's kind of like, am I doing the best that I can? And it's like, yeah, you are, right? Um, and yeah, just like try your best to open up, have the confidence to know that like it's different for everybody. It takes time. And I think one thing that I learned more so from when my mom passed, when my dad passed, I'd say because I was so young, it's like it doesn't go away. And so it's one of those things where I think where my dad, it was like something I was trying to fight, right? Like not fight, but like it was just like this is gonna go away. This feeling, this void, this pain, like it's gonna, I just gotta get there. Uh, and it doesn't, right? And so how do you, make sure that you're doing the things to make sure that you're okay, um, to just continue to just keep going every single day. And I would also look back to say too, the whomever it is, whether it's a parent, a sibling, that person also had other people that loved them and cared about them. And so sometimes, and it happened to me a lot. I mean, still sometimes do, right? Like I get so caught up about thinking about me, like my relationship with my dad, my relationship with my dad. But I never like, the more I think about my dad's relationship with others, it actually hurts me more with them because I'm like, I remember my dad until like I was 8. My I don't know how much my sister remembers him because she was 5, right? Like my dad had brothers. I couldn't imagine what it was like if I lost my sister or my younger brother, right? Like my dad was married, like, and so I was so caught up in how I was feeling. I don't think that I took, and again, I'm 8, right? So but again, whatever context you're in,
Yeah.
it's a lot. I mean, if I was thinking like this at 8
Yeah.
years old, man, who knows? Maybe I'd be in Harvard. But,
Yeah.
um, but it's just like knowing that, like, you're not like not to say you can't be but you're not the only one. Like, not to say literally, but you're not the only one. And so it's how can you lean on those people who have those memories and relationships with that person, you can come together and through those tough times lean on each other. um so yeah, I'd say, and crazy is to go back slightly. I remember you asked me like if I like lashed out. I actually, just as I gave that uh the first answer and just like being open, actually I remember an incident where I actually did lash out once. I remember one time I had a conversation. I was talking to my mom, we had guests over, and I was like asking if I can get like cereal or something. She was like, no, no, no. And in front of like, there's like a few aunts and uncles, I remember just like going to my mom and like, you don't want me to have cereal because you don't love me. And you're right. And I was like, I remember saying that. And after it left my mouth, I remember just like the look she gave me. Not because like I had said it, but I was like, you're saying this like in front of people. And so like, um, I said it and I was like, yeah. Like, and then she was like, all right, like she let everybody in. She was calm. And then she sat me down and just like walked me through and just talked me through. And was like, you really think like I don't love you? And I was like, oh, like, I was like, well, when you put it like that,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you do, right? Um, and so I think that was just me more so. That came out because I felt like I had to hold everything in because again, I had to, I'm a man of the house now. Like, like I don't show emotion or I don't, things happen, I deal with it, etc. And so it's like if you're not open as like I don't think if you're not practicing being if you don't practice being open, I think when it matters the most to be open, it's going to be tough to do because you haven't done it before, right? Like if if you've never ran a mile, you can't just say you're going to go run a full marathon 26.4, right? It's going to be tough. Um, and so just being able to talk about like I don't remember being a kid at the time and having conversations with my mom like, hey mom, like I miss dad. Like I felt it, I thought it, but like, hey mom, I miss dad. Do you miss him? Or what do you remember? Like what was that like? How did y'all like, like things like that. Um and I don't think I was able to have those conversations or think like that because again, I was so caught up in holding things in and like being rock solid, right? Um so yeah, so I like try to be as open as you can, and doing it with the intention of, and hopefully the person whoever you're talking to, it lands the right way, but being open not with the intention of hoping to get received the right way, but being open with the intention of just being open and saying how you feel when somebody asks you, right? um and then being able to lean on the support system around you. uh and yeah, so I mean, hopefully those are helpful tips, man. But like, when I
Yeah.
think about where I am now and like back then, that I'd say those are the things that and having the confidence. That's what I tell myself, right? Like having the confidence to say, like, I miss my dad, right? Like that doesn't even sound crazy to say,
Yeah.
but it's like it's in times like that, when I feel I've seen it. I mean, even me when it's like it's hard to say I miss so and so, or it's people don't do it. Um, and it's not now we're talking about. I'm thinking of like that's like that's not like that's and it's like why not, you know um and so yeah.
Yeah. So, as you talked about, after high school, went to Howard, and then you get this call at the end of your freshman year. Um, yeah, I, I mean, I don't even how do you I mean, there's one aspect of, at least with your father, you saw the battles and things like that. I mean, your mother was away. Um, how do you react? How do you process? Is it immediately you're calling your sister and brother and letting them, like, how was that time period?
Yeah. So I remember it literally in the bathroom, like brushing my teeth or something, get a call. After I get the call from my uncle, I was I was more so in shock, right? Like, what? Like, what just happened? What do you mean? Um, and it was one of those things where you get the news and you know it's true, but you don't want to believe it, but you know that like there's no way that it's not true. And then after that, I remember vividly just going to my mom's sister's house in the Bronx. That's where like all of my family was. Uh, my sister was actually in Africa at the time,
Yeah.
and so was my brother. So I was the only one stateside. And I remember my sister calling me like maybe like 5 to 10 minutes after my uncle called me, and she was just crying. And I remember we were just crying on the phone together, like, what, like this is this is crazy. Um, I would say I was more in shock. I was more in shock. I'm still in shock. And the craziest part is I remember like as I started to get older and like you kind of go through that phase where like you're really coming into a man, or like my mom and I were like best friends. We had a close relationship. We started to drift apart slightly, right? I'm like focused on basketball and video games, and girl, she's like, "You're still my little boy," right? But I remember like one thing that my mom would always tell me, always, always, always. She would always tell me like, "I'm not always gonna be here," and I was like, "No way," like you leave some dishes in the sink, you gotta wash the dishes. I'm not always gonna be here. You gotta learn how to do this. I'm not like all these things, and I'm like, yeah, you are. Like, you know what I mean? And so to go from again, like hearing that, like, I'm not, and then for it to just be so like instant. I think it's a complete opposite of like what happened with my dad. Like I didn't know that with my dad that ultimately that he was gonna pass away because he was sick, but I knew that there was something bad had happened and like something bad was happening. So I think for me it was a little bit easier to process because it was like when you know something bad is happening and then the bad thing happens, it's kind of like we're in a bad time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, Whereas this was just like completely out of the blue. Like literally come back from school, about to go work a summer job. Like things are normal. Like mom's on away in Africa, sister's there, like everybody's there. She's about to come back in a few weeks. Like I haven't seen her in a while since I've been away at school, right? Like I come back and she's gone, and it's like, all right, like cool. And then literally in the matter of seconds, uncool. Um, and yeah, it was, and I'll share too. Like again, craziest thing when the way my mom passed away was she was actually having a housewarming for our home that she had just built over there. And she's walking up the steps and she slips and she falls down the steps,
Yeah.
you know? Uh, and for me, I didn't even know what happened. I just got the news like, hey, your mom passed like X, Y, and Z. And then I find out like later on that day and like, or I think it was like the day after. And I was just like, I was just so thrown for a loop. Right. And again, for me, it goes like I instantly one, I'm in shock, and then I go back to that mindset of like, why me? Right? Like, here's literally, I'm just, like I'm thinking things are getting good. I'm just like catching my breath. I'm in school, figuring it out, like, trying to bounce back from bad grades, like second semester or okay grades. And yeah, it was just literally, so I was just like kind of like, why me? Why me? And I was in shock. Um, and then I'd say the feelings of guilt started to get it, uh, because crazy enough, when one of the last conversations I had with my mom, if not the last conversation, was us getting into it, uh, because I didn't call her exactly on Mother's Day a few days before,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like I'm in shock. Then it's like, why me? And then I feel terrible, right? Um, I'm like, yeah, and so I'd say those are like boom, 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 like that's how I'm feeling. Um, and yeah, it's crazy. And so like even too in our tradition, like in our culture, um, ideally when somebody passes away, you have to bury them also within like 7 days. And so when it happened, I couldn't get a plane ticket and a visa fast enough uh, to actually get out to Mali. So I didn't get to go to the funeral. Uh, and when I was a kid, actually, when my dad had passed away, I was so young, my mom didn't let me go to my dad's funeral. And so that was something that even as it's happening, right? Like, it's like, whoa, like, um, and so, yeah, I'm just feeling all these different things. Uh, not, yeah. And I like that was, I, if I could set the stage, that was like those first few days. Uh, and just kind of feeling like, whoa, like who do I have now? Like you always can lean back on your parents, right? Like, I feel like expect like growing up, that's what you think, right? Like you don't think there's any like you just, like I was telling her, like she's like I'm not always gonna be. I'm like, yeah, you are, right? Um, and so yeah, just completely upside down within a matter of a few days.
Yeah. Um, you know, in I guess both these scenarios, obviously you're the eldest sibling. Um, and maybe you felt like, putting on a face of strength. I'm curious, is that was that healthy? If that's what you did, um, is that what you would recommend to someone in a similar position, or how would you manage being the eldest sibling?
Yeah, so I did take the route of putting on the straight face. We're good. I'm fine. And I did that not only with my siblings, I did that with my friends, I did that with my family. Um, I did that, yeah. I throughout all of undergrad, like because the first thing that come to my mind was like, I don't want to be known as like, oh, Mo's the dude whose mom passed away when we were freshmen. Like I didn't want that to be like, I didn't want people to be happy for me if they saw me doing well because of, like I wanted to be like, I'm happy for Mo because I'm happy for Mo because Mo grinds it out, not because I'm happy for Mo because he was able to do what he did, barring what he'd been through. Like, no, no, no. I want you to know that I'm doing what I'm doing, not, and I don't want you to be happy for me because of where I'm coming from or what I've been through, but more so just because I'm doing it. And that's who I am. So,
Not out of pity.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I, uh, I would, I'd say like the craziest part is as selfless as a person as I think I am or I've been, I'd say those are probably like my most selfish years. Um, and I say that because that's when I was really overwhelmed into the this happened to me. I don't I think that me putting on the like we're fine face, etc. I think I was doing a terrible job of being there for my siblings. Because even though I didn't directly act like it, I felt like I was indirectly acting like I was the only one that had gone through this tragedy, right? Like, and I wasn't present. I'd say that's the biggest piece why. Like, I was there, um, but I wasn't really there because I was just thinking about like how I was affected and how my life had changed and me. And so it's one of those things where it's kind of like you trick yourself into thinking like, yo, you're doing this so that you can be the rock or be there for other people. But it's like, no, like you're actually doing this more so for you. Um, or that's how I felt at least, right?
Mm.
Because again, right, like had I not, I think I would have had the opportunity to be more vulnerable, authentically, more often, as opposed to like, again, like the outbreaks, right? Like maybe go out with a couple of buddies, get like super wasted, right? And then it's like, like I'm talking to my sister, we're, reminiscing, or like I'm having like I'm like I said, I'm going out, or and I'm like over thinking about like I'm in my feelings now and I'm super sad because like I don't show my emotions normally, right? Or it's just like I felt like I was more on I was less balanced. Is that I was good, like I said I was, quote unquote, or I was in shambles. And people barely saw the like when I was in shambles. And I didn't know how to let people be there for me when I was in the shambles because I only showed the person that I was good. I only showed myself as that version. And I I was fortunate enough to have some amazing support systems around me, but I don't think that I tapped into them as much as I could have to learn how to be vulnerable so that I could actually, like I said, be there for them like I wanted to. So yeah, it's kind of like yeah, it's like the opposite, right? It's like I want to like this is it's on me. It's like I felt like it was on me to carry and like be the mom and dad, and it's like okay, like how do I how do I actually do that and not necessarily in a way of like oh like I got it, like you don't got to worry, you know what I mean? Like um, and I'd say that once my mindset shifted gears into thinking like that, like I'd say my relationship with my sister changed completely. Uh, the same thing with my brother, same thing with my friends, my family. Um, because it was easier for it was I wasn't looking at it like this is just me. I'm looking at it like this is again similar thing with like my sister again. Like I'm sitting here thinking about myself and what I've gone through and et cetera. And then I look back and I'm like, my sister went to school actually. My sister went to high school in Mali. And so I'm like, I was with my mom in high school, right? My sister wasn't. I remember telling my sister when she wanted to go away for school, she's like, yeah, I don't want to go. I don't want to stay in the US. I'm like, you shouldn't do it. Stay here. And she's like, no, I want to go to school international. Like, this is fun for what it was, but I'd rather go live like with the rest of the family and then do my thing over there. And so it's like, I think about that. Like, again, I was 18, 19. So if I'm 18, 19, my sister was like 15, 16. And so I look at that scenario and I really remember when I sat down, I thought about it, I was like, when my sister was 5, her dad passed away. She barely remembers that. She went to high school in Mali away from me and my mom for a few years. Now she's 15, 16. Her mom passes away. And she has a brother, older brother, who's emotionally ice appears to be ice cold because he feels like he has to handle everything. Like, once I sat down and I thought about it and I looked at it in that perspective, I was like, I thought I had it difficult. Like that, I can imagine that. You know what I mean? Um, and once I started doing my best to like tap into other people's realities, um, it just brought a level of like humility to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not to say I wasn't humble, but it's just like it's kind of arrogant to feel like, you know, for me at least, it felt arrogant to think that like I'm going through this thing that's so bad, like only me, but it's like I'm discounting indirectly like how the people that are around me are feeling when I'm saying that I care about them and I love them the most. Right. Um, and if I could go back, like I just wish I wish that I could go back and do what I'm doing now and sharing my story a lot earlier and sooner with people and letting them know that like I've been through this, I'm going through this. It's not easy, as opposed to more so like don't pity me, right? Um, because as I've continued to grow, I've learned that like, you know, the thoughts that I have or the things that I think that other people are thinking are just a real strong reflection of like what I'm thinking about myself. And so it's like, why would I think that somebody would, you know, like it kind of, and again, I've learned this over time, but it was like, if I consider these people to be the closest to me, I consider these people to be the people that love me, to be the people that care about me. Why would someone like that? And I'd like to think I have pretty good decision making and friends. Why would that person go out of their way to rub me the wrong way or say something that, you know, might not sit well with me based off of how they said it? Or um, I looked at it as like, how can I take or receive what somebody's saying as if they're saying it in the best context possible, right? And so once I looked at it like that, like again, all of my relationships just got even stronger because also two people didn't feel like that to walk on eggshells around me because they didn't know how I would react to certain things because I didn't show any reaction. You know, like when you're going through a tough time, the people that are your support system, like it's a tough time for everybody because you're trying to figure out like how do I go through what I'm going through, and then the people that are around you, like how the hell do I help this person get through what they're going through? They don't even know, you know, but they're trying, and so it's like, yeah, like how can I encourage that, you know, like if someone knows that they're trying to help me and like however they try to help me, I'm gonna take it with the context of like, you know, Arnie, you're saying what you're telling me to try to help me, you know. I can now receive that and I can make you feel more comfortable in trying to help me by being open, right? And I've learned that in order to also be there for other people, because that's another thing that I realized about myself is kind of contradictory. I always also prided myself on knowing what I had gone through and I'd been through. I was always that person in undergrad that other people could lean on. Or I tried to position myself that way, whereas like If nobody's gonna come through for you, like I'm gonna come through for you. Like if nobody's gonna be there, I'm gonna be there. If it's not gonna, like I got you. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I realized in my efforts to be there for other people and just trying to be a really great friend, it was kind of like how could I be there for somebody else if I can't be there for myself? But in the context of like, you don't know what works and what doesn't work because you haven't tried it. And so it's like if it's time for me to be there for my best friend who might go through or somebody close to me, that might go through something I might have gone through in the past, similar, like until I've gone through and thought about possibly all the ways that I could help myself, how could I come to the drawing board with ideas of how I can help somebody else?
Yeah. How can I be of service to them?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And doing it in a way where it's like, this is not to say like this is not the first time I'm thinking about it, right? Because I knew what worked for me and I knew what didn't work for me. And so now as I'm trying to be there for someone, it's like, okay, this is how I am. I have something to kind of, not go off of, right? Like I'm not making it up as I go. Um, and the more to wrap up the point, like the more I realize how to be there for myself and be open and honest with myself, I realize the more I give the freedom to other people to do the same
Yeah.
and feel comfortable, right? And not feel like they have to walk on eggshells and like they can let me know. I last thing I remember vividly, like again, sophomore year undergrad, I forgot what had happened, man, but it was me, Anthony, Justice, and this is a story that we only talk about amongst ourselves. But we went out to a party. I forgot what happened, and it's like I said, it's super funny. We talk about it all the time. But I remember coming back from the party sophomore year, maybe like first few weeks back at school. Um, I was just going through, like I was having a bad day. I didn't feel like it was the best party. And I remember I just broke down crying as I'm talking to like my four friends, just like I just let it out. Like everything that I had felt all summer leading that, like I just let it all out. I was just boo-hooing. But I'm still talking. And as I'm talking to my friends boo-hooing and crying, they started boo-hooing and crying with me. And it was just like I can't say I've felt closest to the people around. I don't think there's been a moment where I felt as closest to the people around me as that scenario right there, because it was just like this. I just showed myself, you know, and they're crying with me. And they're not like, it's not even like an advice giving session or like, it's just like I'm crying, telling them, they're listening, they're crying. One of my buddies it's so crazy because he's crying, but his cry is so ugly, man. Like it's like one of the TV shows. Like I remember everybody's crying, I'm talking, I'm crying. We hear him on the side just like boo-hooing, like, but like literally like boo-hooing. You would like crazy, like you would thought it happened to him. It's crazy, right? So
Yeah.
he's boo-hooing. And I just remember like us just everybody just like in the room pausing and we just started laughing because we're like, bro, like, is this how you cry? Like on the regular, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, is this you? Like, this is crazy. Like, this is you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so just like going from being able to let out like everything I was going through, how I was feeling, and talking about how it's directly and not indirectly tied to my mom passing away literally a few weeks ago at that point, right? To them just listening to me crying with me, and then us laughing at how one of my friends cried. And it was just, that was that, right? Like there was no pressure on anybody to like, give me some type of magical or miracle feedback. It wasn't me trying to put on this show, just like being real raw and authentic with myself and letting them see that. Because sometimes, I mean, as humans, I just think personally, you don't want to always let somebody see like what's behind the current all the way. And that, like, in that moment I did, and they saw what they saw and they accepted me for it. And I was like, it's probably like, I would never forget that. So, um, yeah.
Yeah. I know this is a tough question, but maybe it might help people that currently have their parents with them. Are there any regrets that you have in terms of not having conversations or not asking or just anything from that, you would remind people that do have their parents today, to be grateful for something like that, or um
Yeah. A few things, man. I feel like we'd be here talking all day, about that, but more so just like, yeah, like I'd say just take the time that you have somebody that you, nothing lasts forever. And it's just one of those things, take the time to really get to know somebody and hear the stories from them before it's not possible, right? Like, I wish I could have, I wish when I was in high school, like, again, it's not like top of mind, right? I'm just thinking about going to college, getting into, yeah, going to college, playing basketball, passing my classes. But it's like, I wish I would have had those conversations, with my mom. Like, how did you and my dad meet? Like, what did y'all do for fun? Right? Like, what were you like as a teenager? Right? Like, I think sometimes we get so caught up in relationships, like, where there is a power structure, right? Like parents, children, like student, teacher, whatever it is, that you forget that. Like, and I'd say this because as I'm getting older, right? Like, dang, I was like, my mom had me, she was like mid-20s. Like, I was like walking at this age and she was taking care of me. And it's like, oh, it's like, I think about where I'm at now. It's like, everybody's trying to do the best that they can, you know? Um, and I've learned to look at people in that light. And I think when you look at people are in the aspect of everybody's trying to do the best that they can, you don't take things as personal. Um, you don't take things as personal. I don't think you hover on stuff as much, and just the opportunity to just get to know, man. Like, there's so many questions. Like I said, I could go through all of the questions I wish I probably would have asked that I didn't ask, that I never thought about asking, that I can now, that I can ask, and like I wish I would have got to know that. Uh, that's what I would encourage people to do. I would encourage people to, like, enjoy the time that you have with somebody. Be present. Like, I've recently just started watching The Office. Great show. Like, I think it's pretty funny. But as it's coming to the end of like one of the last episodes, Andy, he goes, he starts talking about some song. He's like, man, like, I forget the quote exactly, and I wish I knew it, because it's like when he said it, I was like, yo, this is like mind blowing, right? But it was more so along the lines of like, I wish I knew I wish I could tell when the good times were happening or as I was going through them, so that I could enjoy them in the moment, as opposed to getting to the end and looking back like, man, those were the good days.
mm,
That's what he said. He's like, I wish there was a way to know when you were in the good days, so that, when you get to the end of the journey of the chapter, it's like, you're not looking back like, oh man, like, I wish I would have done that. Right. And yes, like, those were my glory days with my parents. And everybody has those good days or those glory days, whether it be at work, right? Like, I think about even me transitioning from DC to New York. I love my office in DC. We had some amazing times, right? But like, in the moment, as we're going through them and doing these things, it just felt like it's another day. You take it for granted, right? It's like, and then I move, and as I'm moving, I'm like, man, like, I miss those days, right? When, I'd be in the office late with everybody I work with in DC, or like, I miss those days when my mom would make me wake up at 6 a.m. to go to the hair salon because she had to open up the shop.
mm.
And I wish I could go to sleep, like, so I'd say just like enjoying the moment. And I personally honestly believe that, like, when you are present and you enjoy the moment and you try to be the best version of yourself every day, accepting who you are, your the things that are amazing about you, maybe some faults or flaws that you might have or you think you might have, right? Accept it and know that the people that you surround yourself with, know that you have good judgment to know that you've surrounded yourself with good people and that they accept you. That was a big thing for the longest, right? I just thought like the people around me accepted me for who I am, all the great things that they did. But it's like, I'm thinking like, oh man, if they knew like, I was always late, but it's like my friends like, Mo, we know that you're always late. We accept you anyways. So it's like, learn to accept, you know, everything, the good, the bad, the great, and the ugly, because the people around you do. Um, and be present. Like if you're present, I personally feel like everything it comes to you. Like what you should do, what you should say, how you should feel in that moment, it all comes to you because you're there. You're thinking about it, right? Um, and then a few things that I've done over the past 2 years that have really accelerated where I am now with my mindset and my thinking was I got a coach, a life coach I started working with. And I was doing life coaching and I was doing therapy for a while. And I stopped doing therapy and I focused solely on life and working with my life coach. It's been going on 2 years now. And I realized that there were things that I was or I wasn't doing on my day to day that led to me having multiple bad days in a row, right? Like, so what I do now is like I have a vision that I've written out that I voice record, I listen to every single day on my walk to the train. I listen to podcasts like yours. There's another podcast, right, that I listen to called Quote of the Day. It's a podcast that just like every day drops like one quick like 5 to 10 minute quote from some like motivational speaker, talk, etc. And I listen to that because for some reason I just feel like the message of that day always just hits me or it relates to me. Uh, and I run. I try to get physically active in some capacity. Um, and so, and I used to journal back then. I don't do it now as much. Like now, I like if I have a thought, I put it in my notes. But I'd say just finding or experimenting different ways also to express yourself and how you feel. For me, it was running. I ran, like last year, I ran a mile every day for like 590 days. And for me, it felt like therapy, right? Like I felt like when I was like, there were times, man, where I ran into stuff that was right in front of me because I was just like in another zone, right? And so one thing that again I knew about myself was I was always self-aware. I knew that there was something wrong, right? But I wasn't as active to find a solution because I was scared of like, going wrong or choosing the wrong thing. And so I just encourage people like whatever it is that, makes you feel good or, helps you express yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, like I just encourage you to do it. And I encourage you to surround yourself by people who care about you and who love you and who you can learn and practice to be honest with, so that you can grow, right? And it might be playing basketball, it might be listening to music, it might be going for a run, a swim, it might be like whatever it is, and try it out. Like maybe try journaling for like 2 days. It's not my thing. Okay, cool. Like maybe it's getting on a phone call with a friend like once a week just to talk to them. Let them, hey man, like, I need to talk to you like once a week for like 30 minutes. Can you help me out? Right. And I've also learned to give to others what I'm seeking. If I want somebody to be there for me, or I feel like somebody hasn't been there for me, the first thing I think to myself, have I been there for that person? Am I listening to what they're saying? You know, um, if I want somebody to talk to me about tough times, because I think that was another part of it. Like I felt that I can't speak for everyone or anyone other than me, but I feel like sometimes when you go through hard stuff, like you want somebody to ask you, like, "Yo, you good?" and genuinely like mean it. Like, are you okay? Um, and so it's like if I want people to ask me okay, let me ask other people if they're okay. And hopefully, if I ask enough people if they're okay, one day somebody will come along like, "Hey, Mo, are you good?" Right? And so yeah, just put out to the universe whatever it is that you want. Because again, like I felt like that's one thing I was doing. I was like, I wish I had, I wish I had, I wish I had, I wish I had, I wish I had. It's like, what are you doing to give? What are you doing to give? What are you doing to give? Um, and just knowing that every day is a journey. And if you can wake up tomorrow like better than you were yesterday, or wake up next year and you know, like you're looking at 2022 or you're going into 2023. If 2023 is barely better than 2022, cool. Like, all right, man. Like, I remember in business, one thing when an advisor from another state told me was I had a down year. Uh, where and we go to these conferences, they give you ribbons, etc. And like I had like this one ribbon that's like best year ever. And I'm over here like down in the dumps. And he's like, dude, like you get best year ever every year. Like you wake up in 20 years, you're gonna be in a pretty good place, right? And so
Yep.
sometimes being able to take the magnifying glass off or like just try to think about the bigger picture, even though it's super hard or difficult to like not see what's in front of you. Because I'd say for me at least, like everything that I've gone through has just allowed me to now really just be an advocate or a spokesperson for people who might not feel like they can talk for themselves, and to be there for people who might need somebody to be there but don't necessarily know how to express it yet. Because I've known and I've tried with myself how to be there for me. Now I can go out and I can be there for people who've, you know, lost a family member. I can go and I can be there for, you know, someone who has to take maybe they have their parents, but they have to take the responsibility of taking care of their siblings. Or, you know, somebody who has a disability and they used to get picked on as a kid, right? Or just like all these different things that I've gone through. And it's like, again, I ask myself, why me? Why me? Why me? And it's being able to know like I've gone through all of these things and God willing, I'm still here. And how can I use that to give? And once I've gotten into like the mode of gratitude, I'd say life has gotten, the tough days are a little bit easier. Um, but yeah, so just grind it out, like whatever it is, and just one step at a time, as cliche and like as it sounds, right? Um, but I always I look at it too as like try it for a week, try it for 2 weeks, try it for a month. If you don't like if you don't believe me, you know, like if you don't think trying to get better every single day slightly is gonna help or benefit, like try it for like a week, you know, like, and at the end of that week, if you feel like, you know, like that wasn't it, try something else. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you can try stuff, but it's like as you're growing, it's you're gonna realize like, and I'd say this, I feel like last thing, I feel like my biggest regret, and this is why I say try things. Like I said, in those years when after my mom had passed, I felt like I wasn't present. I look back and I remember those years. I had a great, but like I wish I could go back and do some of them over so I can actually be aware of what's going on. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I could only imagine if I had taken this journey or started this journey of trying to be the best version of me, like sooner than when I did, like, whoa, where would I be now? Right. And that doesn't necessarily make me feel like in the sense today, where like, I don't feel a way where it's like, I didn't start then, I started now, I'm behind. It's, I feel if anything, I'm so pumped and excited to have started my journey on trying to be the best version of me like 2 years ago, consciously, right? Uh, than having waited in the future. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it's tough. It's there's no answer. And I'd say I think sometimes too, like I think that's the answer. Knowing that there is no right answer. My right answer is not going to be your right answer. Your right answer isn't going to be somebody else's right answer. And so having the confidence and knowing that when you ask yourself that question, the answer that you give, you believe and you practice it or you try it. And if it, and again, if it doesn't go the way that you've expected, like just pat yourself on the back for trying. right? And whatever it is that you don't have, or whatever it is that you're scared of, one thing that I've started doing is like when I get bad anxiety or I'm scared of something, like now, like first thing I think to myself is like, what am I scared of? Like, what am I literally scared of? So I can break it down and I can pinpoint it. Okay, I'm scared of, you know, doing a presentation and it not going well. Okay. I'm I want to do this, but I feel like I don't have this. And so when you are also able to identify what the fears are and what the obstacles are, I think again, you know, the roadmap starts to become a little bit more clear on what to do because now you know what's in your way. And you've already started the journey because you've figured out what's in your way. And it's how do you equip yourself um to just keep going, right? Again, one thing I heard, everybody gets the podcast is like everybody gets 100-second chances, and when you get to 99, the cool part is you get to reset.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, we've talked about a lot. Was there something um that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get a chance to?
No, man, I'd say I mean it's been about an hour and a half. I could go all day if you got the time, but
Yeah.
no, I'd say, man, if you've taken anything like from watching this, listening to this, um, I just say like it's okay to not be okay and accept who you are, the good, the bad, the ugly, and I think that's the hardest part, right? I'd say once you are able to pinpoint and identify and like, figure that out, I'd say like the way to move forward, as hard and as difficult as it might be, you start to walk, and you know, day by day. And it doesn't I hate to, you know, for me at least, and I can't speak for everyone else, but for me at least, I can't say that it's gotten better. I can say that I've gotten better, but it hasn't, you know, like I think about my parents every single day, you know, every single day. And I would also encourage people who are surrounded by people who are going through tough times or who have been through difficult times to try to keep in mind that, like, again, the same way that I said it just now, like you think about it every day. Like if you have a friend who's lost somebody who's been through something or a tough time or difficult situation, like 9 times out of 10, they think about it, you know? Um, and so just looking at things from that lens or that aspect, right? Um, I think definitely helps the relationship, and it helps you be there for them. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
because it's just, I think that's just, we're all gonna go through hard times, and you know, like I said, I was fortunate enough to where I had support systems. Like I had people who in the moment probably loved me more than me, you know. Um, and yeah, like I'd say if you're gonna, so if you're close to somebody, just, and I'd encourage, like, you know, just checking in from time to time in a way that is, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this, but being there for someone in a way in which, like, the most random day when they thought that everybody has their own stuff going on, nobody's thinking about them and their problems and what's going on. If that random day, you know, like I think about, like, you know, Mother's Day comes around, Father's Day comes around, and I'd say throughout the rest of the year too, like on my parents' birthdays when I share like people are there for me, and I love it. And, it's amazing. But I'd say sometimes those texts on a random Tuesday or a call from someone like, hey, just checking in on you, that that goes a long way too. Right. And I would encourage you, like, whatever it is that comes to mind to try to help somebody, like, within reason, like, do it. And, like, just know that maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but, like, ultimately the thing, or the key piece is that you were trying to be there for somebody. um and yeah, if you can, I think that just, it brings a level of vulnerability. Like, it's, like, people are trained and equipped, in my opinion, too, when they go through tough times, and they know that, they're going to be in a situation where they're going to be surrounded by people. It's I think it's a little bit easier to put a guard up when you're going to have to be guarded. Whereas, like, if you don't, you just get a random call on a Sunday night, you're just having conversation, da 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 da. Like, hey man, like, you into this? Like, how you feeling? It's like, oh shoot, like, I didn't get prepped to guard. You know what I mean? I didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't get ready to give you my I'm okay excuse.
Yep.
Like, I'm fine, I'm good, don't worry about it, we'll bounce back. Like, I'd say the things that sometimes people to say to, like, get you to keep going. Like, sometimes it's good to push. Like, and letting them know too, if that moment isn't the moment, that it's okay. But just, like, like, you call me like, hey Mo, like, it seems like you're down, man. I'm not gonna push you, I'm not gonna press you. But if you're down, bro, you can call me. You don't gotta tell me today. But the next time you're down, hopefully, I would love for you to give me a call and talk to me. Like, that type of stuff right there, like, that's powerful for someone going through a tough time. Um, because it's the moments, again, like, in my opinion, where I felt like I was the loneliest, were just those random days where I thought that nobody was thinking about me. Right? Like, I know that people are thinking about me. The people that are closest to me are thinking about me on Mother's Day, on Father's Day, on graduations, on big events, and I know that they're not I know that they are thinking about me on days that aren't that as well. And it definitely, it helps to keep it going that extra day, when you get those random uh, reach outs, and the crazy part, like I said, I didn't realize it, so I started doing it for other people. Right? Like, hey, are you good? Been a while, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, so yeah,
Yeah.
if anything, just day by day, whatever you got to do it. Uh, and yeah, it's your path. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. As long as you can learn and continue to grow, like, and enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment, because you can't get it back.
Yeah. Well, Mo, I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story so vulnerably and honestly. Um, if someone wants to maybe reach out to you, maybe for them in terms of their grieving process or something like that, or it's related to financial planning, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, man, I would say just, you can shoot me an email, um, Mohamed.Diarra@nm.com. Not sure if there's any way I could spell it out. But, and I'd also say too, like, text. Like, I say email, but, like, honestly, like, you text me, like, and I'll give 202-390-2972. You shoot me a text, I'll give you a call, or you shoot me a text and then you give me a call. Um, that's the best way, man. Like, just text me, whatever it is, whoever you are, from wherever you are, however you might have, whether you listen to this regularly, maybe you stumbled across it, like, somebody that I know, you don't know me at all, like, whatever it is, just like I said, shoot me a text. And however I can be a resource, would love to.
Yeah. Well, my man, I hope you know how strong you are, man. You know, don't know if I would have been as put together and normal and successful if I had been given the shoes that you were given. Um, but that's a testament to you and your character, um, the way you carry yourself, your ability to handle adversity, and still be there for people like your siblings. Um, and hopefully we help someone out today with the advice that you gave. So
I
thank you.
appreciate it, man. And I thank you, man. Like the platform that you have, bro, this is huge. Um, and I appreciate you, for letting me just come on and just tell my story, right? And tell it in an authentic way and um just be, transparent and vulnerable and caring, right? I think, you have to care to be able to create a platform like this to help serve other people that you've never even, met in any capacity potentially. Right. Like I think it's, you're there for your friends, your family, but once you start to, I think go into those types of depths, man, like this is super cool. This is super awesome. Um, I'd say that you thank me, man. There are things that I told you today and feelings that I got and memories that came that I probably wouldn't have remembered or felt or thought had we not had today's conversation, and so I appreciate you, man. And I thank you for just allowing me to come on and just speak my truth and what I've been through and what I'm going through in the moment. And it's a day by day. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Means a lot.